Okay. Here we go. Okay. Perfect. Sorry about that. I didn't know that Facebook didn't let you switch between your webcam and the PowerPoint. So here we go. The answers to your foot problems. So I'm Dr. Bain. I'm a brand new chiropractor to Surprise, Arizona, and I do a very, very different technique called ABC chiropractic. So you'll learn a little bit about that tonight and how there's kind of been some new pieces of information that invalidate how a lot of chiropractic is done to most people these days. You're going to learn a lot about shoes and how shoes are actually the cause of a lot of people's problems. Okay, not only in the feet, but also in the low back, in the neck, in the knees and the hips. Okay, so let's just kind of get started and let's start talking about these things. So, as I said, who am I? My name is Dr. Patrick Bain, and just a little bit about me. I got my doctorate degree from Northwestern Health Sciences University in Bloomington. I'm from Minnesota, so I've been to Surprise now probably about, I'd say a week and a half. So very excited to be here, and got my bachelor's degree in kinesiology from California State University, Fullerton. I am the owner-operator of Springback Chiropractic. And I have a very large passion for healthcare. Not to get too deep into that, but the reason I'm so passionate about healthcare is because my grandfather had a stroke many, many years ago. Sadly, he passed away from that stroke, and it inspired me to become a chiropractor because I wanted to get into healthcare. I wanted to help people because I felt he wasn't treated very well, and I just felt in my heart that if I got involved in healthcare, that I could be helping a lot of people, and that I could help people like him. So that's why I got into it. And of course, my most important piece of life is having this strong sense of mission. And this mission, of this clinic is to help as many people as possible who are struggling with their health. And I want to help them through chiropractic, through nutritional intervention, and any other holistic interventions that I can find that are helpful. And so before we can get into shoes, you kind of have to understand, well, what does a chiropractor do? Where are they coming from? What is their perspective? And then specifically, you kind of have to understand what is my perspective, because I have a very different perspective than I would say 99% of other chiropractors because of the technique that I do and the information that I have come upon. And so here's what a chiropractor kind of does, right? A chiropractor looks at your spine for what we call a subluxation, okay? Just a fancy term, meaning that bones out of place that are causing neurological disturbance and symptoms, okay? And you'll learn that because of what I do with ABC, okay, our version of what a subluxation is very different because of some of these new discoveries, okay? So the way that I approach the spine versus regular chiropractic, okay, is a couple of things. But two things are the biggest, right? I actually get rid of bones that have been knocked forwards, okay? And we'll talk about this a little bit here, but that's a huge discovery, okay? Because it's literally the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. The second thing that I do is I get rid of what we call meningeal adhesions, okay? There's actual scar tissue that builds within the spine, okay? Not just in muscles, not just in joints, but literally within the spine between your vertebra and your spinal cord, okay? So I do these big full body stretches that actually release those adhesions, which create these incredible posture changes, and you actually address the causes of these things, right? No more of this bouncing back and forth, right? You're told you're on maintenance, and you still have the same problem you've had ever since you started. It just isn't as bad, right? That's not maintenance, right? True maintenance is fixing the problem. It doesn't come back, and then you start working on other things, okay? And then because I'm also a chiropractor, we also need to talk about the nervous system just a little bit, okay, before we get into the stuff about shoes, right? So there's two divisions of the nervous system, okay? This is what we call the autonomic nervous system, okay? And it's kind of all your automatic functions, right? So things like heart rate, sweating, bowel bladder function, right? Kidneys, all the things that your body does, you don't have to think about doing, okay? And the incredible thing about this is that it influences every organ, cell, and function of the body, okay? It's one of the most incredible systems in your body, and in my opinion, the nervous system is the most important organ in the body, because none of your organs here could function without the communication, right, from the brain out through your nerves out to your organs, right? They wouldn't function, right? Okay. The second division is what we call the central nervous system. Okay. And this is what I work on specifically, okay, as an ABC chiropractor. And if you've never heard that term, and it's very likely that you haven't, make sure you go to my website after the health talk today, and make sure you watch my video on my website about ABC, because it explains everything in a much more in-depth way. But essentially, the CNS, or central nervous system, is your brain, which is right here. This is an actual patient's MRI, and your spinal cord, right, which is the connecting tube that sits within the spine, right? This is your spine right here, and this is the back of your spine right there. So this spinal cord is housed within that, okay? And here's the two things that I work on as an ABC doctor, right, that no one else is working on, that regular chiropractic, physical therapy, medical doctors, nobody's looking for these two things. Nobody's fixing these two things. And actually with regular chiropractic, because of the way they adjust people, they're actually creating this issue instead of fixing it, okay? And the first thing, okay, is what we call a forward bone, okay? So this is a spine. This is an x-ray spine. It's pretty zoomed in. These are your vertebrae, okay? And there's your chest right there. And you can see a little bit of the heart and lungs here. That's what all this kind of stuff is here. But what you notice, okay, is how flat this is, okay? This should be a nice curve, okay, rounded back like this. But in this instance, this spine is pretty much straight as a pole, okay? These are obviously forward, right? They're forward, not backwards, right? So with regular chiropractic, what they do is they lay you face down on the table. They'll come back here and they'll push these bones forward, more forward, which isn't going to fix the problem, okay? The second piece of evidence that we can see here about why we know this is forward is because we see these bone spurs, okay? Bone spurs basically just is your body building more bone in areas where it normally shouldn't be, because there's a pressure, okay? So there's a pressure as gravity is pushing down here, pulling down, that pushes right here, and then the body builds bone there because of all the pressure. So that's a second piece of evidence about how we know that the body's spine, that the spine is going forward in this instance. But you see this all the time. You almost never see a bone spur like this on the back of the vertebra, which tells you that this is a problem that everyone is having, okay? Now the second thing that as an ABC chiropractor that I work on that no one else is working on, and that you need to work on in order to actually fix a problem and not just treat a problem, is scar tissue within the spine, okay? And this is an incredible discovery, okay? So this is actual photos of a human spine cut in half. These are the vertebra, okay? So just like in the x-ray image, here's one side of the vertebra, here's the other side. Here's the spinal cord, if you remember when we talked about the central nervous system, okay? Right here and over here, okay? Those are all pieces of scar tissue that are actually binding your spinal cord to the inside of your vertebra, okay? So if you don't get rid of that, your spine is going to continue to get more stiff. You're going to continue to have more symptoms, and you're going to continue to have poor posture and continue to slouch forward, okay? So here's a perfect example of how this process works, right? This is what everyone thinks they look like. And I can just tell you, as being a practitioner in the field and seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bodies, this is not what the typical person looks like. And I can tell you that almost all elderly people look like this, right? And this is kind of the process, right? As these bones continue to go forward, like this, right? More and more forward, right? You continue to lose that battle, right? That's why eventually you need a walker, and eventually you're in a wheelchair as you get elderly. And then as you go forward, you build that scar tissue in the spine. So the incredible thing about ABC is we can instantly change people's posture permanently and not temporarily in each visit, because instead of pushing bones more forward like regular chiropractic, we actually bring them backwards. Okay, and you'll learn more about that in a bit, but I'm almost ready to start talking about shoes here, I swear. But one last little tidbit that I hear just too many times is this, well, I'm not in pain thing, right? Well, the reality is, okay, pain is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay, pain is like the warning light that has turned on at the last second, and it's kind of telling you, wow, you've really got an issue now, right? All this time here, right, all these years that you may have been building this issue, there wasn't pain yet, or at least it was maybe intermittent, maybe a little pain here, maybe had a little pain there, but you never truly were like, wow, I really got to get this checked out, until now you've hit the fan, and now when we start working on you, you've got a real big issue here that could have been a smaller issue if we had addressed it earlier. So I just wanted to make a slide about that. Okay, so now we're ready to talk about the foot. And kind of the important thing you first have to talk about is you got to look at the basic anatomy. And as a chiropractor, you know, the thing I like to talk about most, of course, is the bones of the foot. Okay, so this is just a diagram, basically a drawing of a pretty good looking foot, of what we would consider close to ideal. Okay, so here's what we're looking for overall. We're looking for a nice rounded arch, okay, which I've depicted here by this yellow line here, okay? So a nice rounded arch, meaning it's up, it's not collapsed, you're not flat-footed, you're not super high arched where it's way too high, kind of a nice balance, okay? A second thing that we're looking for a normal foot, okay, normal anatomy of a foot, is we're looking for separation, okay, of the toes here, okay? Not too much, not too little, you don't want to see it cramped, okay, just enough where you've got a nice little gap in between, and you see that these bones are pretty much in good alignment. They're pretty straight, they're fairly well aligned, okay? Third, we're looking hopefully that there's no degeneration or bony growths, right? So we don't want to see a big bone spur like we did in the spine earlier, sitting on the toe or sitting in here, or we don't want to see a bunch of, all this bone in between here starting to get kind of broken down, which is indicative of having incorrect biomechanics of the foot, or maybe you have a nutritional issue. And then the last thing is we want to see that the heel and the toes are at the same level. So we're gonna show you a little bit here. This is an actual X-ray of a human foot, okay, and this is generally a pretty good looking foot. This is what I would call a pretty normal looking foot. I'd be pretty happy with this. You could nitpick a couple things, but I wouldn't be too unhappy with seeing this. This is pretty good. So you can see that the bones are pretty much well aligned, right, in the toes, and you can see that the arch, albeit one of the issues here that I have, little things to nitpick on this X-ray, is they obviously didn't take this X-ray with the patient standing, meaning they aren't weight bearing. And when you take a weight bearing image, the arch completely changes, and you actually get a better idea of how bad a foot actually is when you take an X-ray weight bearing. So they didn't do that. So, we can only judge it as so much as we can. But, I always take my foot X-rays standing, because then I can actually see what your arch is doing and if it's collapsed or not. But this is generally a pretty good looking foot. There's no degeneration. The toes are separated well. I'd be pretty happy taking an image of this and seeing that. Okay. Big difference now, though, when we look at what we would call an abnormal foot, okay? Really big difference. So what we can see here, okay, in comparison to what we saw here, right, a lot of changes, okay? The separation between the toes is pretty off, right? You've got some cramped areas, and you've got some extra wide areas, right? Cramped, extra wide, right? They don't line up as well. So this one's pretty good, but then now you start going here, whoa, what's going on? Now you get angles, right? More angles, meaning that this foot is overturned, okay? Meaning this foot, if we took a look at this in actual anatomy, and I looked at this person in real life, this foot would be turned outwards, okay? That's why you're seeing these things at angles, okay? So something's off. The foot of this person's body is having to compensate for something, okay? Another thing we start to notice is, just like I was talking about earlier, in this individual, we're starting to see little bony spurs, little degeneration starting to happen on this individual, okay? So now we know that there's definitely something going on because these should not start building unless there's an issue, right? And if we look at this person's foot from the side, luckily this person took it weight bearing, which is great. So I appreciate whoever took this x-ray that they took it weight bearing. But what we see here is, look at all this. You see all of that bone that's starting to build here, big bone spurs, okay? That means that these are tension bone spurs, okay? Meaning that something's really pulling, right, on both of these sides, meaning these muscles are working way too hard, they're way too tight, and these muscles are way too tight, and they're pulling so much that they're actually creating bone spurs here at both sides of the calcaneus bone there. So, you know, this is what we don't want to see, but sadly, this is what I typically see in most people's feet. So what's the cause of all this? What are the deeper causes about why we start to see feet like this, right? Okay. Number one, and this is a cause that you as the patient can fix, and is the hardest to get people to fix, because everybody loves their shoes, especially the ladies out there. They like a really attractive shoe. They love a heel, okay? But here's the issue with the modern shoe, okay? Too narrow toe boxes, okay? The area where your toes are sitting, much too narrow, and they're actually compressing the toes in, which actually creates bunions, and I'll show you that in a bit, okay? Second, they have the heel area of the shoe much higher than the toe area, okay? And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on your toes, and you start getting a lot of pain, you start getting a lot of degeneration, okay? Causes a lot of different issues. The third thing, okay, is that shoe companies and, you know, and doctors and other people are telling you to put in these gigantic arch supports, these huge arch supports, okay? And it causes so many issues for people that it's crazy. And it's kind of been this bandwagon thing where they've started to put arch supports in everything. I mean, and they brag about it, right? It's like a marketing thing, like, oh, the shoe's got great arch supports, or, oh, you know, you don't want to buy those pair of shoes, they don't have arch supports, right? It's a total fallacy. And you can quickly prove this to yourself, and I'll teach you how to prove it to yourself at home, where you can test your own shoes on your own body, and you can decide whether those inserts are helping you or not. And you can do it at home, and it's easier if you have a partner with you. So, but I'll tell you how to do that in a bit. The second thing that is causing likely your foot problems, right? Your headaches, your low back pain, your knee pain, your foot pain, right? Part of this shoe issue is that these subluxations of the spine, right? These bones that have misaligned in a direction that the body can't fix itself, okay? Because what that does, when that happens, is you get this pattern where other parts of your body have to compensate. And one of the areas of the body that has to compensate when these bones of the spine go in directions that can't be self-corrected, okay, is the knees, the hips, and the feet. Okay, that's why you start to see one foot that may be overpronated, right, and create that flat foot on one foot, and where your other foot may turn outward and you start getting pressure on the outside of the foot, right? That's a very common pattern that we see. And what they do, right, with the arch support then is they say, oh, well, you've got a flat foot on your left side. Let's give that a really huge arch support to push it up. But then see, now what you've done is you've undone the compensation by the body, right? You just made a decision for the body that it already knew what to do, right? So now what you do is, yeah, maybe that foot feels better, but now your knee hurts, or now your low back hurts, or now you have headaches that you didn't have before, right? It's a trade-off, not a fix. It's a treatment, okay? So that third problem is going to be arch supports and orthotics, and we'll talk about that in depth in a second here, okay? But there's a three-part solution that I find fixes the vast majority of foot problems, okay? And I would say by vast majority, I mean pretty much everybody. It's pretty rare that I can't fix a foot if people actually follow these three things. So the first is, one, you got to change the shoes, okay? And that's on you, the patient, to do. The number two thing we got to do is we have to correct the subluxations of the spine with ABC chiropractic specifically, okay? And number three is you have to rehab the foot, okay? So you have to do exercises to re-strengthen the muscles once we've changed the shoes, once we've started correcting the subluxations of both the spine and the foot, and then you have to rehab the muscles to start re-strengthening that, okay? And you don't have to do this forever, because the beauty of once you change your shoes is that I would say usually about in 2 or 3 months, you don't ever have to do these exercises again, because now your foot is back to the way it should have been. Okay, so number one, change the shoes. So these are some of the brands that I like, okay? These are brands that have designed their shoes specifically with a very wide toe base, okay? Many times you'll go to a regular shoe store and the company will tell you, well, this is extra wide. It's not, okay? Many companies will say, well, I have an extra wide shoe, here it is. If you put your hand and your feet in there, you're gonna quickly realize it's still too narrow. Secondly, they've designed these shoes with the heels and the toe on the same level, and I'll explain that in a bit. No arch supports in any of these brands, okay? I personally, on a daily basis, I wear Zero shoes and Tedivos. And if you're a fashionista, I would say Vivo Barefoot's probably your best option. Sadly, they're just a little pricey. Okay, so here's the toe box, and so these are x-rays of a regular poor design shoe and an x-ray of a foot in a well-designed shoe made for a foot. I mean, look at the difference between these two, okay? See how this is the toe box we're talking about. Look how narrow that is, and what that does is it's pushing in on your toes on both of these sides, okay, right? And what you then get is a bulging of this bone outward and the bulging of the bone of your big toe outward. And what always happens, what do you see in people right here and here on people's feet who have feet problems? Bunions, okay? This is the direct cause of bunions, because when you push here and here all the time, right, for a long time, like years, this bulges out on both sides, and then it rubs against the inside of your shoe, and you start building this massive callus, this thick callus of skin, and then the bone starts to spur, and you get bone spurs in there, and it starts to be really painful, right? And so then what you do is people always get these bunion surgeries, but you still haven't fixed the problem. They go right back into a pair of these shoes, and now they're looking for a second bunion surgery not much long after that. So, you know, as you can see, when you design a shoe for a foot and you give enough room here, you don't get any pressing into the toes, so you're never going to get a bunion in one of these. Your feet are going to feel so much better, more comfortable. Okay, you can avoid that bunion surgery from ever needing to get done. Okay, so anytime you can save someone from surgery, that's a win for me. Okay, here's the proof. I know Claudia says she loves her heels, but yeah, here's the proof on an X-ray of what's happening to your foot when you wear a heel. And obviously, this is a big heel. Okay, I'm not an expert of the heels, but this is several inches at least, I'm going to guess. But what you can see here is it's putting this immense pressure right in the base of your toes. Okay, so that's going to cause a ton of inflammation. It's going to cause your bones to break down. It's going to cause problems in your back, right? And like I said, I don't wear heels. Okay, so I don't know how much you ladies probably have to tough it out on a night out with your back hurting from these, but it's probably pretty immense. So I mean, kudos to you for being able to do it. But I'm just going to tell you, you really gotta shave those down. If you can, I don't know if there's a 1-inch heel, but you know, stick to the lowest heels you can. Of course, my preference is you don't wear heels at all. But I do understand that, you know, it looks nice, and so I get where people are coming from. But even as guys, okay, even when you're wearing tennis shoes or boots or whatever it is, you can see here what they do is they design the shoe, right, with this heel so much higher than the toe, right? So that's what I was telling you guys, where you can go home when you're home tonight, or if you're home right now, after the talk, you can go take out any pair of shoe, you can put your hand in the shoe, and you can run it from the back of the shoe here to the front, and almost every pair I bet you have, you're going to feel this large sloping. And that's going to tell you, that's going to indicate to you that you're going to have a lot of pressure right here where it shouldn't be. And for many people who have metatarsalgia, which is just pain in this area, plantar fasciitis, which is pain in the bottom of the foot, heel spurs, right, those little bone spurs that build, toe spurs, or flattening of the arch, literally just changing the shoe to a shoe that's well designed many times will get you halfway there just by changing the shoe. okay? But now we got to talk about arch supports. And the problem with arch supports is it's kind of twofold, okay? Arch supports are kind of like the ibuprofen of the foot, okay? They create this temporary relief, okay, of the foot pain. But the problem is that you don't correct the cause of the foot pain, right? Like, let's say you have a headache, you take an ibuprofen, the headache goes away, but did you find the cause of the headache, or did you just cover up the pain? It's the same thing with these arch supports. And even worse than that is you become reliant upon these arch supports, okay? And when you do that, the reason you become reliant is because all of that support on the bottom of your foot weakens the muscles on the bottom of the foot, okay? Those muscles that should be very strong, those muscles that should have a lot of endurance become very weak. So the second you stop wearing, you know, these shoes, right, you start to get all this pain, okay? And then you become reliant upon shoes that have arch supports. And then you may even get an orthotic, which is, oh, some of these orthotics are just huge. And the foot is incredibly sensitive. You can go and take a thin little needle point, close your eyes, and have someone poke you anywhere on your foot, and you'll be able to tell that person exactly where they poked. Now imagine putting a large orthotic arch support in your shoe. It's like standing on a mountain, because these things are several millimeters thick, right? And remember what we talked about earlier, that when you put in these arch supports, right, you're inhibiting the body's ability to compensate for bigger issues, okay? Specifically, many times the feet are actually compensating for these bones that are misaligned in your spine, okay, right? Your foot and your knee purposely want to turn in, because by doing that, it's alleviating pressure on your spine and your nervous system. But then when you put these arch supports in, you've now inhibited that ability, and now your body has to compensate completely differently, and you created a problem somewhere else, okay? So get rid of the arch supports, right? And if you have arch supports in your shoes, which I guarantee you probably do, because almost all shoes are designed that way now to already have them in there, what you can do tonight is pick out a couple pairs of shoes, take out the inserts, okay? Most of these aren't glued in, and even if they are, I suggest you rip them out anyway. Reveal the shoe on the inside, okay? Put the inserts on the side, or the orthotics, whatever it is. Put the shoes on the side. Stand with your bare feet on the ground, and have a spouse, a friend, take a picture of your posture from the side. But before they take the picture, take a nice big breath in, breathe out, relax, and let your body slump, okay? Let your body slump into whatever poor posture that it wants to go, okay? Let all the muscles relax on the back of your body, and then take the picture, okay? Then what I want you to do is I want you to take the inserts, put them on the floor in front of you, and stand on them, okay? So just kind of like shimmy them where you want them, stand on the supports on the ground, and then do the same thing. Take a nice big breath in, breathe out, relax, and let your body slump. Take another picture, okay? Slide those aside. Next, take the shoes. Put the shoes on without the supports in. Do the same thing. And then put the inserts back in the shoes and take a picture with those, okay, in the same way. And then compare them. And what you're going to find is that at least probably 8 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 people are going to have a worse posture than they did before. Or 2, or in many times in combination of, you'll find that when you're taking a picture of your spouse, or they're taking a picture of you, what they'll notice is that when you put the arch supports on or the shoes, your body is going to do this swaying pattern that it didn't do without shoes on. And the reason that you're swaying and you look off balance is because your body now has to compensate for those inserts. So your body is going to be doing all these weird rotations and things in order to compensate, okay? So let's go on to step 2, which is what I do. This is what you need me for in order to progress through this problem, okay? Is we have to correct those subluxations of the spine. Okay, and the crazy thing about ABC, and like I said, if you just tuned in, if you don't know what ABC chiropractic is and why it invalidates how regular chiropractic is done, okay, make sure you go to my website, springbackchiro.com, and you click on ABC and you watch that video, because it's going to really open your mind and explain why regular chiropractic couldn't fix you and never can fix you unless you do it this way. But the crazy thing is when you start to correct these subluxations, okay, so this is a diagram kind of explaining this process, right? As we start to get rid of those forward bones in your spine and that scar tissue within your spine, you're feeling better than you felt in a very long time, okay? But here's the crazy thing. You start to hit this stride downwards where you start to feel worse. And then the patient inevitably will ask me, all right, why am I feeling worse? I feel like I'm going back, and and I thought we were making this great progress. Well, you are. But what happens is as the spine changes and it starts to fix things instead of treat things, you have to go back into the old injury position, okay, of an old issue. We get you through that, and then you get this incredible stride where you're better than you ever started here. And that's kind of how this process goes over the years. And I did say years of ABC care, because the thing is that regular chiropractic, you never get beyond this point. You stay right here, because and I know this to be true, because if you talk to anybody, or if you've been to a chiropractor, or if you haven't, right, your problem never goes away. It continues to come back, whether that's days, weeks, months, or years. It never goes away, so you're never getting beyond it. But when you get ABC, you get beyond that, and you continue to dig back into old injuries until eventually we've gotten rid of almost every forward bone in your body and almost every piece of scar tissue, and you're better here than you may have ever remembered that you were. Okay, so that's a little bit about that. And the crazy thing is, and this is one I hear of a lot of times, is patients are always talking about, well, my doctor, my chiropractor, my whoever told me I have scoliosis. Okay, like it's a death sentence or something, or it's this crazy, this crazy kooky thing, right? I mean, but and the sad thing is kind of a fallacy, because so this is scoliosis. If you don't know what that is, it's just big curves in the spine. So this is what it looks like on an X-ray. Okay. And there's two types. There's one that they say they don't know the cause for, which is the most common, but I'm going to tell you the cause in a second. And the second is what they call congenital, or you were born with it. Okay. And the problem is that what regular chiropractic does is they come in here, and if this is bent to the left, they'll come and they'll push that to the right. And this is bent to the right, they'll come in there and they'll push that to the left. Well, just like with the other parts of the foot and the orthotics, okay, being put in there and screwing up compensation, going in here and trying to get rid of these curves is getting rid of the body's purposeful compensation, okay? Because when bones go forward, the only thing that your body can do to try to compensate for that is to curve your spine and to try to lean you backwards, okay? So it's wrong to try to get rid of these, and this is also evidence of that scar tissue. And here's a little interesting tidbit, a little study before we go on to the rehab part of the foot. But 7 patients, okay, had this syndrome they call tethered cord syndrome, okay? And, this tethered cord syndrome is caused by this increased tension, okay, in your spinal cord by, let's remember the scar tissue, the meningeal scar tissue, and these nerve roots that were pressured, okay? These patients had a ton of symptoms, okay? Weakness in the legs, they had all this pain, they had these leg deformities, meaning their legs were turned in odd ways, loss of sensation. All 7 had scoliosis, okay? And a bunch of other stuff, loss of bowel and bladder function, okay? This guy was a neurosurgeon. He cut out that scar tissue in the lumbar spine only, nowhere else. And immediately, all the patient's scolioses reduced. Immediately, all of them. You got an immediate reduction in all the leg deformities, meaning when they checked their legs, they were no longer turned weird, okay? They were pretty much normalized. And they had a reduction in all symptoms within only months post-surgery. And that was only getting rid of this scar tissue just in your low back, okay? With ABC, you're gonna get rid of the scar tissue in the entire spine, full spine, okay? And you're gonna do it without surgery, okay? And you're gonna get rid of the forward bones. So that is my intent every time that we give a person an ABC adjustment and that we get rid of the scar tissue, is that I always think of this study, because whenever I see a scoliosis on an X-ray, when I take an X-ray of a patient, I know that you have some version of this going on, which is unique to each individual. But regular chiropractic, 1, doesn't address this, and 2, doesn't even recognize it, and neither does PT, and neither does regular medical doctors. This is a problem that everyone has, but no one's addressing. So here's what happens when you start to actually get rid of those 2 things. When you correct the subluxations, okay? This is a buddy of mine, okay? This is his changes in posture in less than 10 minutes. And yes, I did say that, less than 10 minutes. This is his posture changing, fully relaxed. So just like I told you to do with the shoes, to take that big breath in, relax, let the body slump, that's what he did here, that's what he did there, and that's what he did all the way at the end. So you can see, I mean, just look at this. His ear is super far ahead of his shoulder. It should be in the middle. Now it's pretty much in the middle. His chest is collapsed here, okay? Now his chest looks twice the size because now it's actually sitting where it's supposed to be. His stomach looks much larger here than it actually is, because you can see by the end of it, his stomach actually is much further in, because what we've done is now the body doesn't have to compensate anymore for the forward bones and scar tissue on this day. And so now his belly is sucked in, okay? Right? Back, look at this. Look at the change in his back. Super slumped, starting to straighten, and now look at this. Now he's actually got a fairly normal looking curve. All of that was within 10 minutes, okay? None of this was faked. He was quite surprised to see how crazy that was. And another thing that we do in the office, and I do this pretty much all the time to prove that what we're doing is working, is I take these temperature scans of people's backs before and after adjustment from time to time, just to prove to you that it's really working, okay? So this was a patient's scan of their back. So each of these is the side of the back. Each of these colors represents temperature in degrees Celsius away from the average temperature on each side. So you can see, I mean, look at all this yellow. He was so warm away from his average temperature this is the top of his neck, this is the low back, okay? Really hot throughout here, and then really cold, okay, from the middle of his back all the way down, meaning he was many degrees Celsius away from his average temperature in the cold version. This is directly post-adjustment. Look at how crazy this is. It went from literally this, right, all these degrees Celsius away from average temp, almost to normal, all the way through his entire spine. I mean, look at this, all the way down, and that was within 10 minutes, instant change, okay? And this is just an interesting little slide I put in here where now they're using this technology to actually screen for breast cancer and breast cysts, because it's actually being found that mammograms are actually very, very inaccurate, and they don't recognize the issue early enough. And they also increase your risk of breast cancer by getting mammograms every year because it's radiation directly into your breast. Okay, so you can actually use this technology to start, so you can see the difference in the breasts here, where you can actually identify breast cancer and cysts before it becomes an issue, and then you can get rid of it much earlier on, and you can avoid things like double mastectomies and really awful, terrible things. And it doesn't increase your chances of cancer because it's completely minimally invasive. It's totally safe. So, okay, so anyway, off of all that chiropractic side of things, right? The third thing to do for these foot issues is you have to rehab the foot. Okay, you have to do some exercises for the first 2 months after you've changed the shoes. Remember, you have to change the shoe. It's the root cause, okay? You gotta change the shoe. But lastly, after we've done these two things and started to work on this, you have to do some exercises at home only for the first 2 months, okay? So here's a couple things I've got for you here that you can do at home. And you can start these whenever you like, but we have to start fixing the spine, and we have to change your shoes if you want it permanently fixed, okay? So here I've got what are called toe spreaders, okay? These are just little inserts. You put them on there. They kind of look similar to like if you get your nails painted or if you go get a pedicure, okay? And what they do is kind of like we talked about with those shoes with the narrow toe box that are pressing in your toes, right? And causing this all to be pushed together. These will separate them, okay? And you can, and I would start very conservatively with this, okay? Maybe just a couple minutes every day, okay? And then keep bumping it up. And eventually it doesn't even bother you, and you can do like 20 minutes while you're watching TV, your favorite show or something, okay? Second, here's 2 exercises that you can do, okay? These are just marble grabs. So basically you just get some marbles, you put them on the ground, get yourself a cup out of the kitchen, and you just pinch the marble and you just deposit them in the cup, okay? Here's what we call, these are just kind of toe curls, okay? So you just get your basic towel out of the, out of your bathroom, and you just scrunch. So you basically just continue to scrunch, and you do as much as you can, but here's just some kind of just basics, okay, for an average person, right? You could just do it 2 times a week. You can do it 12 to 20. So like if you're doing a towel curl, you can just do this 12 to 20 times, just 12 to 20 curls. and you just do that for 3 sets twice a week, right? It's pretty simple, right? You only have to do it twice a week. You can do it while you watch TV. You can do the toe separators while you watch TV. But remember, doing all this rehab does nothing if you haven't changed your shoes and you haven't had your spine and feet corrected using ABC, okay? Okay, so we've pretty much talked about all the stuff I need to talk about the shoes. So I have a kind of a example here that I kind of want you to imagine, okay? And so everybody knows the Titanic, I think, right? I mean, I'm assuming everybody who's watching this right now has seen the Titanic, heard about it, right? The big ship, it's unsinkable, right? And you see the scene, and you've got I don't remember his name. What's his name? I don't know if anybody wants to comment on there if they remember. I'm forgetting his name right now. Leonardo DiCaprio, and you've got the other lady, right? And it's all the little boats, right? Well, how full were the boats, right? If you think back, right, were they 100% full? Were they 90% full? They were only half full, right? And this is a true story, right? These boats were only filled halfway with people that they could have filled, right? So as they're sitting in this cold water, right, this water that literally can kill you within minutes, okay, you see all these people drowning all around them, right? And you're one of those few that's sitting in that boat and you're watching everybody drown, okay? That's what's happening with this issue. That's what's happening with health in this country right now, is very few of us are sitting in the boat and there's all these people around us drowning that need help, okay? And no one's reaching out to grab them, okay? So that's what I'm gonna ask you to do tonight, okay? Here's what I'm gonna offer you tonight, because you guys were awesome and you actually came and you listened and you watched, and maybe you're watching this later after it's been recorded, okay? But what I'm gonna offer people who watch this is I'm gonna do my complete analysis to figure out if this is an issue for you completely free, okay? It usually takes me 2 to 3 days because I don't cut corners. Okay, it usually includes x-rays, neurological exam, looking at your posture, taking your history, doing the temperature scans that I showed you, looking at your symptoms, looking at your nutrition, and so much more. Okay, I'm willing to do all of that for free. Okay, that's something I usually charge $400 for, but I'm going to do that for free as long as you can show me proof that you gave a $20 donation to any charity of your choice. I'm not even going to dictate what charity that you choose. And the reason that I'm going to do this, okay, and here's the picture, right? There's us, and here's these people that need our help, okay? It's because I have that mission, okay? If you remember at the beginning of the talk, if you were here from the start, or if you just joined a little later, my mission is to help as many people, okay, heal as many people through chiropractic, nutrition, and other holistic interventions, okay? And if you know somebody right now, if you know somebody who's here, right, they're laying and they're complaining every day that they don't feel well, right? They're tired, they have headaches or low back pain, their feet hurt every day, right? They aren't the same person that they used to be because they just physically don't feel well, and so they can't be the person that they could be, right? I want you to reach out to them today. I want you to reach out a hand, and I want you to pull them out of the boat. I want you to send them to this video or many of the other ones that I've created. I want you to send them to my Facebook page. I want them to like it, and I want them to watch the videos that I have. Or I want you just to go counsel them, to go teach them the things that I taught you tonight, or things that I'm going to teach you in the future, because these people need our help, okay? And without you, I can't reach these people, okay? You're the one that has to get them out of this unhealthy state and tell them that it's time to change their lives. And with this care, with ABC, with these things you just learned tonight about shoes, with the other things that we're going to be teaching in the next month here, because this isn't the only talk I'm doing this month. I'm doing 3 more, okay, each Wednesday, all right? You guys have to be the ones that reach out to these folks, okay? So if you want to get in contact with me, okay, personally, or if you want to send someone to me to learn more, because we're not open yet. The clinic's hopefully going to be open, soft open May 15, May 20th is our goal, where I'm going to start seeing patients, okay? But if you want them to start being exposed to this stuff and you feel that you know some people that need this, here's my website. I've got 2 videos on there that explain a whole lot of stuff, okay? I've got my Facebook, which you're looking at right now. So if you haven't liked this page yet, like it and send others to, okay? I've got my Instagram, where I do live posts pretty often here, almost daily. I've got a YouTube channel where I post all these health talks. So you can go back and you can watch any old ones all in one place. And here's my email. Please feel free to email me if you feel like you have questions or you want to know more. Okay, I will answer as many as I can. And if you are interested in taking up this offer, send me an email or send me a Facebook message and just say, hey, I'm interested in doing that offer, okay? And I'll send you something that proves to me later that you wanted to do that and that you contacted me before we were open. Okay, anybody have any last second questions here? If you want any questions answered, you can comment them on the page right now. Otherwise, that's the health talk. So, and I'm glad that you guys came and you watched. So, but if not, thank you guys for watching, and that's it.